apologize if you hear any sounds again. My cats are being very rambunctious, so you'll probably hear them. As I mentioned in my last video, Skinwalkers are one of my favorite cryptids, although I'm not quite sure if I would consider them cryptids, because they are actually a type of witch, which I went over in my last video. If you want more of a detailed explanation about what a skinwalker is, I highly suggest that you check that video out if you haven't already. But this is the second part in a series about skinwalkers. And in this video, we are going to go over some true skinwalker stories. And I am going to give you some tips on how to keep yourself safe from the perspective of someone that practices witchcraft. I have been practicing it for about 15 years, and if you would like, I can do a full video about it in the future. So, to begin, before you start talking about any sort of entity or spirit or anything like that, especially the really negative ones, you need to cleanse your space. So to do that, I am going to use some lavender oil, and I'm just going to spray it. Lavender is very protective and cleansing, and it invites a lot of positive, calming energy into a space. Because I don't use sage, lavender is my go-to. I also like cedar, rosemary, and yerba santa. So I am going to read a couple of spooky skinwalker stories, and I hope you enjoyed them. They are kind of disturbing. There is no, violence involved as far as I can tell, but they can be really creepy. So, I've got them on my phone here. The first story is called Skinwalker is Watching Me. The original title uses the Navajo word for skinwalker, but in my last video I went over why I don't use that name. Okay. My grandmother, on my mother's side, has always been very superstitious, for lack of a better word. She's not religious, but she does believe in a lot of paranormal stuff. Her mother was full-blooded Navajo, and her father was Irish. Either way, she'd never been anywhere east of Montana, and she grew up in Nevada. One year, when I was in grade school, we went to visit her. Most of the visit was pretty uneventful, typical boring old people stuff, except she always kept her curtains drawn shut and would always peek out the window, and when someone would ask, why she was doing that, she would simply reply, "Skinwalker is watching me." This went on for nearly the entire visit until a few days before we were due to leave. My grandma and then baby brother, he's now 19, were in the front yard that evening planting flowers when all of a sudden my grandmother starts shouting, "Insert little brother's name here, get away from that creature, it's not safe." Of course, being in Nevada, we all assumed that my brother had found a scorpion or a rattlesnake, so we all run outside to see my grandmother clutching my little brother and shaking in terror against the side of the house. Standing out in the yard was a large black Great Dane-sized dog. It was staring at my grandmother with an intensity I'd never seen before. It looked up at us, gave a little huff, and bounded off. I don't remember if it moved unusually fast or not, but do remember it had really deep yellow eyes. My mother asked my grandmother what happened, and she kept repeating, "The Skinwalker has found me." She moved a couple of weeks after that. Now, if you watched my previous video, that might sound pretty similar to the creature that I believe was a skinwalker that I saw about a decade ago. It was also a very large black dog, and it had a really creepy smile. So, just something to think about to keep you up at night. Okay. And I apologize if you can hear some car noises. There is a classic car show going on in my neighborhood right now. So, let's move on to the next story. This one is called "It Was Like It Knew We Knew What It Really Was." I decided to join my bestie Karen for a 3-day stay at her grandmother's place on the res. Her grandmother lives near a place called Tuba City, Arizona, in the middle of nowhere, but surrounded by rural homes. We go to college together, and I was kind of interested to know about Navajo tradition. The first day we stayed, it was pretty chill, nothing out of the ordinary. But then her grandma, not that old, she was around 67, said that a stray dog came out of nowhere and wouldn't leave. To me, it did kind of act strange, and it was ugly looking. Black, shaggy coat, and it looked like a mix between a German Shepherd and a lab. That night, we were watching a movie in the living room, which had big windows that looked into the front where the cars are parked, nothing fancy. With the curtains wide open, Grandma was in the kitchen cooking dinner, and we were watching a movie. Next to the window is a medium bookshelf, and where the DVDs are kept. Karen went to put back a DVD we had just watched, but she freaked out because that stray black dog was staring at us through the window, standing on top of the wood box outside. Not something normal dogs do from my point of view or hers. Usually my dog, which is a house dog, scratches at the door to be let in. Res dogs aren't. House dogs and dogs inside houses are frowned upon in Navajo tradition because they are meant to protect the house and owner. Tuba City to get some groceries and came back to the house. The dog was nowhere to be seen. Nothing unusual. Grandma went to visit some people, so it was just Karen and I. Around 5 o'clock, we heard someone trying to open the door. Both of us looked out, since there had been no car heard and no dogs barking. Looking out the living room window to the door, and there was the dog trying to open the door with its paws. 2 paws wrapped around the brass doorknob, standing on its hind legs. I thought that was weird, but wasn't really freaked out. Karen was. She opened the door and chased it off. Grandma came back later, and Karen told her. Grandma didn't like what she heard. Got ready to sleep. We slept in the spare bedroom, since it had 2 beds. One window with curtains opened a little. We turned off the light, and there was a sound coming from on top of the roof. Pitter patter, footsteps, and scratching sounds and panting. It then sounded like it jumped off onto the large plastic water barrel they had. At first, we heard what sounded like barking, but as it grew louder, the other dogs seemed to be barking at something also. But all of a sudden, something was running around the house, barking, and it was no dog. Nope, it wasn't. The barking sounded human, a deep male voice barking like it knew that we knew it wasn't a dog. Woof, woof, ruff, ruff, arf, arf, arf. Just exactly like that, adding W's and R's and A's. Then panting again by the window, we started to freak out. Karen decided to, in my opinion this was stupid, open the curtains to look out. There was the stray dog on its hind legs, looking into our bedroom, but this time it stunk. And what I thought were 2 black holes in the neck were another pair of eyes that twinkled. Think of those ugly, glossy spider eyes staring at you. And the paws were deformed looking hands with overgrown, somewhat thick and sharp fingernails. Again, both screaming and shutting the curtains closed, Grandma came running through the door and seeing it. First thing she did was grab ashes from the fireplace, load 3 shells into the shotgun from under her bed, bless herself in Navajo, and went outside to shoot it, yelling in Navajo about how the thing wasn't welcome there, and to get the hell out of there, for it to go linger somewhere else. Them both being traditional, the next day they called a medicine man to come over and put cedar in. He prayed over everyone with cedar smoke and an eagle feather, blessed the place, made us eat bitter herbs, and gave me an arrowhead. Apparently, I needed to carry one for protection and a little pouch with corn pollen. Seems to work pretty well. The medicine man said the dog was a skinwalker, and the body of a stray dog, which was killed by the skinwalker, made an illusion, so we wouldn't know that harm people by using some sort of human bone straw to spit at someone. Think spitballs, only deadlier. And get human bones into them. Doctors can't detect it, but the medicine man that day pulled a piece of human skull out of Grandma's right shoulder, about 2 inches long and 1 centimeter thick. It was real because we watched him pull it out of her. That was intense. So I apologize if that last story was a little choppy. The way that the author wrote it was kind of difficult for me to read. But I did pick that story because it showcases that skinwalkers are malevolent witches. And as a witch myself, who does not often practice dark or malevolent, I should say, magic, there are ways that you can protect yourself from these kinds of things. The first way is to ward your home. A ward is a protective charm that can be worn or put somewhere in your home. For me, I have 4 obsidian arrowheads that are at each corner of my property line. I also have protective crystals like black tourmaline, which I am wearing, selenite, and tiger's eye. Those are my go-to. But there are several other protective crystals. If you feel like one of these things is around you, the best thing to do is to not show fear, just like the grandmother in that story. Holy ash, or ash that you collect from a fire or from incense that you've burned, or from herbs that you've burned, like me collecting the ash from lavender and cedar. If you put it above your door, that is something that is specifically said to ward off skinwalkers. Some of the advice I'm giving you is just general cleansing and protection magic. But ash on the doorway especially will ward off skinwalkers. Having a good sense about you, having a good intuition about when something is wrong, that goes without saying. If you see an animal that looks odd or that is behaving unnaturally, that doesn't always mean that it's a skinwalker. It could be sick. It could have mange or chronic wasting disease. But it is just generally good to stay away from wild animals or stray animals that are behaving oddly because you don't know what kind of diseases they're carrying. And who knows, maybe one of them is a skinwalker, but it's more likely that they have mange or rabies or something like that. Confronting entities like this is generally the best way to get rid of them. So just telling it that you're not afraid, telling it to leave you alone, that is what is going to help you the most. I am obviously not Dene, and they have their own ways of dealing with these things. So, if you want perspective on how to protect yourself, please go check out a channel called Sean Glenn Shadow Productions. He is Dene, Navajo. So, if you would like an authentic perspective, I will link his channel in the description. I highly recommend that you check him out. He does amazing work with this kind of stuff, and it's given me, as a witch that is living in proximity to Skinwalker activity, a really helpful perspective on how to keep myself safe, in addition to just standard cleansing and protection magic that I do all of the time. So I hope you have enjoyed today's video. I will be back in 2 weeks with a new video where I will be discussing my witchcraft practice. So not as many scary stories in that one, but I think that you will enjoy it just the same. So until next time, bye.